Hello again, baseball romantics. Jason with you on the RAB podcast. We have a special roundtable discussion episode here as we head into the holiday season. But for baseball fans, it's not just the holiday season, it's also hot stove season. And we've had some major movement and free agent signings in the last few days. So we are going to talk a little hot stove. We're also going to talk all things Major League Baseball, look back maybe on a couple things in the previous season, talk a little bit about the 2026 season, and just really have a discussion among some guys who love the game of baseball. So I've got a couple of our partners from RAB. Nico Malika has joined us, our regular co-host of our RAB podcast, and Mariners fan extraordinaire. We've got Josh Kermy, who has joined us for a second time. Josh is a huge Tigers fan, and he is going to make sure that Tarek Skubal does not leave the city. So thank you,
Right.
Josh, for performing
That's
our
right.
service. And we've got Michael Simpson, who, along with myself, is a big Braves fan, but just discovered that he lives in Boston or in the Boston area, but he's a big Braves fan. So we're gonna have Mike on eventually on our Fans Journey podcast to tell us that story. We've been discussing that, so glad to have Mike aboard to chip in as well. And first of all, I want to kick it off and just thank our listeners as we try to grow our podcast. We've hit a major growth spurt in the last couple months, and I want to thank all our new followers, and I want to thank all of you who have listened to our Black Sox series, the episode one that came out Thanksgiving. That has now become our number one listened to show in our podcast history. So thank you guys for that. And episode two is only a little over a week away, 2 weeks away, week and a half, we'll say. December 21st, I'm going to release episode two as I'm trying to finish that one up. So please tune in and see what happens next in the infamous Black Sox scandal. And for those of you who've been following our Fans Journey podcast, new episode of that coming this Sunday, the 14th. We'll release a new one, and that one's going to be Mike will be interested in this one, all about the 1995 World Series and my experience as an 18-year-old watching my Braves win the big one finally. So a lot on the table coming up, and we look forward to talking to all these guys and doing some baseball talk. So let's jump right in. As we record this, we had just gotten the news the night before that Pete Alonso has signed with the Baltimore Orioles after it seemed like a large flirtation with the Boston Red Sox. This one threw me for a loop. I didn't see this coming. I know the Orioles have not always been big spenders in the free agent market, but they nailed down Alonso to add to that lineup. Let's kick it over to Nico and start off with Nico's opinion on this Alonso signing. Nico, does this make the Birds back in contention to get them out of the cellar? How do you look at this move for Baltimore?
Well, I think for Baltimore, it's another step in the right direction. Don't forget, a few weeks ago, they acquired Taylor Ward in the Grayson Rodriguez trade. So it's a step in the right direction for Baltimore. They've been aggressive since the offseason started. I didn't see Baltimore as a player like you, Jason. I did not. I thought that it was between the Red Sox and the Mets. I thought it was a matter of was Boston going to pry him away from New York? And it turns out New York never really wanted him anyway. Reports were that they never even gave him a contract, um, which is not surprising considered the feud that we've seen now for a couple of years in New York between Alonso and Stearns, and even to the top with Steve Cohen. Um, they haven't been wanting to commit to Pete long term for whatever reason. He doesn't fit the script that David Stearns is trying to build in New York. He's been talking about run prevention, run prevention, run prevention. Um, he's this is the third key guy now that they've lost in New York with Nimmo, Diaz, which we'll get to in a minute, and now Alonso, who's a huge fan favorite. So I think it's a good move for Baltimore. I can't help but think of the Chris Davis irony. Remember Chris Davis when they gave him a huge contract years ago, and it was one of the
Yeah,
worst contracts ever.
yeah.
Let's hope. I don't think Pete's going to replicate that. I think Pete's legit, but um, Baltimore's bolstering that offense, but they still got to obviously get the pitching in order. I don't know if they're going to be in play for a Michael King or are they going to seek a trade for Joe Ryan? There's still a lot of stuff going on. Baseball moves so slow in the off season. I don't know why it moves at a snail's pace as opposed to other sports, but I think it's a good move for Baltimore. Very interesting time for the Mets. I'm not sure where they go from here. But I can tell you right now that David Stearns has the keys to the car in Queens, and he's calling the shots. And as of right now, everybody's yelling about it except for one guy, and that's the owner. He's given him the leash to go out there and completely retool this team. So I'm fascinated as to how they're gonna, field their team in March for opening day. But it's going to be fun to watch.
Yeah, absolutely. I was just looking at Alonso's numbers to refresh my memory. 272. I know a lot of people don't care about batting average anymore, but I still look at it. 41 doubles. I mean, 38 homers, but 41 doubles, 127 RBI. That's a productive, to say the least, productive bat that's not protecting Soto anymore. And I've seen a couple of tweets from people saying, now they've signed Soto just to walk 40 more times a year because nobody's in the lineup to protect him. Josh, what are your thoughts on the Pete Alonso signing?
Yeah, absolutely. It definitely surprised me. I really thought that Boston was going to do what it took to get that done. And I honestly thought he was done with the Mets. I think last year was almost like he went there because he kind of had to, and I think he was finally over it. Just like kind of a bad relationship, right? It's sometimes you do got to just cut ties. It comes out they didn't even offer him, you know. So um, the Orioles stepping up is great for them. I mean, obviously, in any other division, I mean, and maybe other than the NL West, that's a tough one to be in. I mean, they have more moves to make to say, hey, I think they're going to be up there with the Yanks, the Sox, and the Jays, who we'll talk about as well today. But hey, they're connected to Framber Valdez and Mackenzie Gore. How serious those are remains to be seen. But I mean, you saw the news. Pete literally snuck in the back door of that hotel to meet in person with the Orioles.
Yeah.
So they were serious, and they offered him 5 years. And the Red Sox apparently didn't not only didn't offer him 5 years, but they offered him significantly less. And I was surprised to hear. That's what I was more surprised to hear, because Boston needs that bat, and they're like, hey, we got rid of Devers, and we need to make moves. Um, so that pushes some other people that they really got to get. Um,
Yeah, Boston seems like they're not all in spending like they were before. And we talked about that during the season. I know Bruce hit on that in a couple episodes where the Red Sox are not just going to go bonkers crazy trying to outspend the Yankees anymore. So I'm not terribly surprised. I was just surprised that he ended up with Baltimore. Baltimore has not been the big spender that the fan base wants. Obviously, they would like to see them spend more. I want to acknowledge that we have a new person on that's joined us, Kenny Hallman, who I'm guessing based on the background he's got right now with Ohio State flag, can't wipe the smile off his face after some breaking news out of the college football world last night at the University of Michigan. Yeah, prayers for Sharon Moore, but that's a mess. Kenny, thanks for joining us, man. We're talking Pete Alonso signing last night and kind of our general thoughts on that. You got any input you want to throw in there on that signing?
I just wish he had been in the Rangers conversation, but he
Yeah.
wasn't.
Yeah, I was kind of like Nico. I thought maybe he would stay with the Mets, although I also felt like Josh does. Like it seemed like that relationship was broken. Uh, and then it was the Red Sox, and I didn't have anybody else really in that mix. The Rangers, Kenny, since you mentioned that, is there anybody on the radar? Is there anybody being talked about that the Rangers could add at this point?
Around here, people are talking about adding a catcher, Adley Rutschman.
Okay.
But the trade talk that's being bounced around would be a little too steep. We've got a minor leaguer, Walcott, that's held in pretty high regard, but I don't see the Rangers giving him up for a catcher that may have already past his prime.
Yeah, as a Braves fan, we'll send you Sean Murphy if you want to take on that contract. We need some prospects in return. No, look, the Rangers I thought were building something really special a couple of years ago, and now I've actually picked those guys 2 years in a row to get back to the World Series, and 2 years in a row they've let me down. So I won't pick them this year, Kenny, and they'll probably go back to the World Series. That's usually how this works. So to give our audience just a little bit of background, we've got Kenny here and Michael Simpson. They both participated along with myself. If you're familiar with the Nostalgic Baseball Geezer on Facebook, he is a fantastic page where he does a lot about the history of the game and just some really cool and entertaining facts and stories. And recently, he invited 12 of us, I guess total, to participate in an all-time baseball draft. And so he broke it up into positions, and I won't go into all the details, but we got to draft an all-time team. And so me and Kenny and Michael all participated in that. It was really cool. It was a really fun thing to do. And then we had a chat, and we still have it, that was just absolutely hilarious and a lot of fun. So it was a great experience. Took us, what, guys, over a week, I guess, to complete that and kind
About
of
that.
around Thanksgiving. Super fun. And he's releasing those. Justin is his name, the Nostalgic Baseball Geezer. He's releasing those teams that we drafted, a few at the time, on his page. So highly encourage you, if you don't already follow Justin's page, the Nostalgic Baseball Geezer on Facebook. Give him a follow and check out the teams that we drafted. I was telling Mike off camera, Kenny, I don't even remember my team at this point much. I didn't write them. I didn't put them down on paper. So I'm waiting for Justin to post my team so I can remember who it was. I knew I had Jackie Robinson, Ken Griffey Jr., and Hank Aaron and Bob Gibson. And so I figured that's a pretty good quartet to build around, right? But yeah, so Pete Alonso, that's probably to me the biggest domino, I guess. Although Kyle Schwarber staying in Philly is also huge news. So let's move to that. I thought Schwarber would probably leave. I wasn't sure the Phillies would pony up to keep Schwarber. He gets a 5-year deal as well, I believe. So we'll go to that next. My own personal thoughts on that. That's a good move for the Phillies. The longer they can keep that core intact, but it's getting old. They're going to have to make some other moves if they want to get back to the World Series. But generally, I thought that was a good move for Philly. Schwarber's a clubhouse guy. He obviously has a big effect on the culture of that team. And then he hits dingers, which doesn't hurt in today's game. So let's go back to Nico real quick. Nico, your thoughts on the Phillies keeping Schwarbs?
Not totally surprised. I kind of again, I keep thinking that the Red Sox are in on some of these guys, and like Josh mentioned before, I feel like they're notorious for just flirting with free agents. They've done it for several years now. I don't know why they sell their fan base that they're going to make a splash, and they don't really ever do. I mean, last year they got Bregman, but it was a 1 year opt out. With Schwarbs, man, I'm not surprised. It's classic Dave Dombrowski. He's a very aggressive general manager. If he wants to keep somebody or acquire a free agent, he goes out there and he doesn't really necessarily worry about the money. He's chasing the title. And right now that Philly window has kind of shrunk. Now, because I feel like they should have cashed in on one and they haven't done so. Kyle's a huge piece in the puzzle for them. I still think he's got several great years ahead of him. I just want to say, man, I think these contracts are, I like it. It's fun. It's exciting, but I feel like they all age so poorly, with
Yeah.
whether it's Schwarber or, Pete Alonso. I'm a big fan, but, he's going to be going into his, mid 30s as a, right-handed first baseman. And you kind of know how that goes, Miguel Cabrera example. But for Schwarber, he was too important to lose. He's a huge asset in the clubhouse. I think he's kind of the leader. That's what the message we've got out of Philly is. Um, I think Philly is one of the most interesting teams in the offseason because like we kind of wondered, are they going to start to retool that roster and maybe build for the future? Are they going to try to continue to have that core of guys and continue to go for it? And I think they're still kind of going to do a little bit of both. They're going to try to, obviously keep Schwarber. We'll see if Real Muto is going to stick around or not. Um, obviously Bryce Harper's got to bounce back for them. And I think they're going to continue to be aggressive. I expect Castellanos to get traded. He's a guy that's been rumored for a couple of years now to get moved. Maybe Alec Boehm is part of a move. I'm not really sure. I think, like I said, baseball moves really slow. So I think there's a lot more that's going to happen with Philly. But no surprise with Schwarber. You heard the Pirates were involved. The Orioles were involved with Schwarber, so kind of a couple of surprise teams. But I think in the end, the Phillies got their guy, and it makes sense for him to stay in Philly for the foreseeable future.
Yeah, I kind of feel like the Pirates knew the whole time they weren't going to get him, so they're like, let's get some PR and pretend like we were really in on Schwarber to make the fans happy. But I don't know that they were ever really, like I have my doubts about that. Josh, your thoughts on the Schwarber staying at home in Philly?
Yeah. I always thought he was going to be there. Dave, having obviously experienced Dave myself here in Detroit, just know that if he wants that shiny object, it's going to happen. And especially, he's age 33. It possibly could have been different if this was 5 years ago and it was going to be some 10-year deal. But, you know, for 5 years, is what he was looking for. I just knew Dave was going to spend the money. I mean, he's huge in the locker room, as you guys mentioned. Um, I mean, he's going to hit you 35, if not 40. And what he did last year, hitting off left-handed pitching, was was unbelievable. Those things can't be guaranteed going forward, but that was just a huge step for him in his production against left-handed hitting. Um, Dave Stubbard, he built. He got uh, Kyle, he got Trey, he got Bryce. The same way he did in Detroit with those guys that he brought here. He's gonna go down with them.
Yeah. I was just looking at Schwarber's line from last year. The most surprising thing, I mean, he hit 56 homers, 132 RBI. The most surprising thing is he had two triples. Trying to figure that one out. Big guy, Kyle Schwarber. Uh,
Right.
Kenny or Mike, you guys either one want to chime in?
Well, with those two triples, he probably just bounced it off the like left center wall, and it kind of carried him. So
Got
he
away
got
from somebody?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
I mean,
Basically,
God bless him. Like, I get winded going up an escalator. So, I mean, he's probably out of it by the time he gets to third. Yeah.
I had heard like possible talk about him going to the Reds, and I thought it would
Wow.
have been a good fit, but
Yeah.
yeah, but like you're saying with the Pirates, that was just for show. They're
Yeah.
not going to spend.
No, they're not. I was shocked to even see their name in it. And then I thought, well, they're doing a little PR work here. I think they knew the whole time he wasn't going. So the red surprises me a little bit, but that does seem like it would have been a good fit. And I'd like to see Cincinnati make a move. I'm not a Reds fan, but I kind of like that franchise. And it would be nice to see the Reds be relevant again. I know they kind of slipped into the playoffs this past season, but they weren't a real threat to win anything. I'd like to see them add a bat, be more exciting. They play in a ballpark that can be exciting for hitters. I'd love to see them make a move. Kenny, do you have some thoughts?
I just looking at Schwarber as a Philly, he's always been such an integral part of that team. I didn't see him moving, even though his name was bounced around. I just never thought of him being anywhere but Philadelphia.
Yeah,
I He was, like you said, 56 home runs,
yeah,
132 RBIs. You don't let that walk if you have a
right.
chance to keep it.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean he had an MVP type season. Obviously, when you're in the same
Mhm.
league with Shohei, it's difficult, and the 240-ish batting average probably drug him down. But I mean, we all know in this day and age you can overcome that with RBI and hitting dingers, and he certainly did it, and two triples. Right. A couple other big signings that have happened recently, guys. Edwin Diaz, the rich keep getting richer as the Dodgers sign another one. And, we could tie all this into what's looming with the labor strife that's over the horizon in 2027 and how the Dodgers are quote unquote ruining baseball. We've given our thoughts on that before on our podcast. Right now, operating under the current rules, the Dodgers are doing what the Dodgers can do. I mean, it's up to other teams to make moves to compete. I do reach. I've seen a little bit of this on social media, and I do kind of agree with this thought. At some point, these free agents, you almost want to say, "Are you a competitor? Like, why go to the team that already has? Go somewhere where you can compete with these guys, instead of joining them." Yeah. So, but Diaz joins the Dodgers, gives them yet another effective pitcher. Now they can build their setup guys around him, obviously. So we'll talk about our thoughts on that. Nico, back to you for thoughts on the Diaz signing.
Well, you said it, man. The rich get richer. You can't help but feel that. When I saw this signing happen, I just shook my head. I mean, nothing against the Dodgers. I mean, I love the players on the team and all that, but I'd like a little bit more parity and or a little bit of a change in the playoffs as opposed to the last couple of years. But um, if there was one vulnerability that the Dodgers had last year, specifically in the postseason, it was the bullpen. I mean, we talked about it on the show quite a bit that, they have everything except for, some, a guy that can close out the game or give them a couple innings in the latter half of the games. And look, they got arguably the best closer in baseball. I don't know why the Mets did not retain Diaz. It sounds like they made an offer that was $3 million less, 3/66 versus what the Dodgers gave him, 3/69. So again, knowing how much money and resources the Mets have, I'm kind of surprised that they didn't go above and beyond to retain Diaz if money isn't the problem. So I can't help but think that Diaz wants to go to LA. That's what I think. That's the impression I got. So it's a heck of a move, man. I mean, you look at this Dodgers team, they've got all the pitching in the world as far as the starting rotation. They've got, unbelievable lineup. Here's what I'll say. They lost Kershaw, Chris Taylor, and Conforto's salaries are off the books. So they've got don't quote me, I think almost $100 million in money. So that the Dodgers were going to be they're going to be active. They always are. If you're a good player and you're a free agent or if you're available, the Dodgers are going to explore you. So it doesn't surprise me who the Dodgers acquire. You got Kyle Tucker out there still. I know Tarek Skubal's a trade rumor. I don't know if there's any legs on that. So you got to expect the Dodgers to be aggressive. And it's like you said, Jason, it's like, you want to, do you want to just join the best team and just kind of cash it on a ring? It's like, all right, whatever. I know the weather's beautiful in LA and, you don't really get a cold April over there, but it's just the rich getting richer, and it's a great signing for a team that already has everything.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to argue with people wanting to go out there, I guess, but at some point I just feel like, don't you want to be a part of the team that takes them down? I mean, that would be my mentality. Great segue, though. Let's go to Josh. Let's talk about Tarek Skubal involved with this Dodger move. Josh, obviously, talk about the Edwin Diaz move, but also, being a Detroit fan, what are you hearing about Skubal? We've heard some smoke about a trade to the Dodgers. So your thoughts on both those, the Diaz signing and the potential of Skubal being traded?
Sure. Yeah. I don't want to be too redundant here because a lot of my points are Nico got them for me. Yeah. I mean, he, the Mets, offered 366. Apparently they even said, hey, we have wiggle room, right? And he still just said, okay, I'm going to LA. We've talked about it before. There seems to be some internal stuff going on in Queens.
Yep.
Because just people are leaving, and what Nico said, I mean, they have the money. It's not like they can't say, hey, we really want you, we can't pay you, right?
Yeah.
I mean, Cohen's got 21 billion. That's a lot of money. So there's something going on. There was the whole Lindor McNeil stuff that apparently was going on, and just some disconnect. So it seems like, yeah, he was just over being a Met, and obviously the next up was the Dodgers, and they said, hey, here is the record for a relief pitcher. All right, see you at Dodger Stadium.
Yeah, the Dodgers needed another guy with I think it was 98 strikeouts to 21 walks. I mean, bless their hearts, they needed another guy that can throw strikes and blow it past people.
Oh yeah, and as Nico said, I mean, the one thing, I mean, why they got Sasaki once he got healthy, why they put Sasaki back there and did some other things at the end of the bullpen. I mean, why they had Yamamoto close out that game, right? The one thing you could say, okay, there might be a half a chink in the armor.
Yeah,
was the bullpen. Now you got Edwin Diaz, who is Edwin Diaz. As far as Tarek goes, yeah, and I'm going to try to keep this short because I could give you some time on this, as you guys saw in the chat yesterday. So, that report, right, came out Monday. It was some local news reporter in LA. Now, I'm definitely not trying to discredit the guy because who knows who he talked to. As I was mentioning yesterday, those kind of things now are usually broke by the national guys that are keyed in. Those are the guys who are keyed into the agents. I mean, you hear Jeff Passan, Ken Rosenthal, JP Morosi. I mean, those guys are saying, "Hey, Johnny, whether you like the guy or not, those are the guys. Those are the guys that are breaking. Hey, so and so's player talking to so and so team, and there's some smoke there's some smoke." So first of all, for that to come out from a local guy is kind of like, okay, who knows, maybe. But then to that happened on Monday, to not hear one peep out of anybody else all week that there's actually legs to that rumor is kind of like, okay, what really did that guy hear? Like as far as because that's what got that kind of whole quote or whole rumor mill really going, was that, everyone was sharing it, they're saying it's imminent, and there's nothing. And then, I mean, Scott talked at the meetings, which was whatever. I could talk about that, but I'm not going to go down a rabbit hole. And so did AJ. And they, nothing was really said. And then you got guys like Ken Rosenthal. After even that rumor releases, I don't think he's going to be traded. And even the local guy who was on the radio, a local radio station here yesterday, saying, I don't think he's going to be traded. Things could always change. It's going to be hard to line up a trade with Tarek because Scott Harris sees him obviously as this golden goose, right? If he's going to be traded. If we're trading Tarek, you're going to give us
everything.
I mean, like a Juan Soto return, right?
Just put your AAA team or AA team on a plane.
Right.
And we'll send Tarek
also, not only that, I mean, you're getting at least one, if not two, major league ready players that are going to plug in, right?
But Josh, I mean, it's the old question. If you're the Tigers, if you don't think you're going to be able to re-sign him, do you take what you can get and probably less than what he's worth, so you don't get zero? I mean,
right. And I'm not saying, again, as I try to say, I'm not saying he won't be traded. I never thought he would be traded at these winter meetings. Scott is, if you're talking about deliberate and stubborn, that's Scott Harris. Right? I mean, and he's kind of got to be. A lot of these mid to small market presidents, GMs have to be. You hear rumors of Cleveland being the same way. They have to be because they can't get bullied, right?
Well, and again, not to carry on the same narrative, but I mean, there's only a few teams that could probably pony up the prospects and major league ready players. And Dodgers are the #1 team that can do that. For
sure. They can do it.
That's like an embarrassment of riches out there in LA.
Right. And what I'm saying isn't necessary. I'm not saying he won't be a Dodger. He could. To be clear on my kind of view. I was speaking to that specific rumor or Twitter post that it's imminent, the deal's in place. I don't think it's quite that. Yes, I think 2-3 weeks, we definitely could hear of possibly something happening. I think Scott was always going to go there to these winter meetings, gather information from the Dodgers, from the Mets, or whomever else would really be interested, do homework. And I also think Scott not only owes it to his job as the president to be thorough in the decision, but in this case, this is a huge thing for Detroit Tigers fans here. Not only for the Tigers, but honestly, not to, again, go down a rabbit hole, because of who owns the team, Chris Ilitch, between what went on in the last decade here in sports, this is a big decision.
Sure.
Because, Chris, between the Red Wings and Tigers, Chris is tied to both. He owns both.
Yeah.
This is a big decision. He owes it to do homework. And I mean, I think he needs to be able to say, even if they trade Tarek, we sat down with Tarek and Scott Boras and we had honest conversations and negotiations on what could happen. And if there is even a chance that he becomes a Tiger for long term before he pulls the trigger, not to act out of haste and just say, okay, Dodgers, you offered this, we're going to go with it because we don't want to lose them.
In today's world of Major League Baseball, especially with pitchers, I would trade him. And once I got the
Right.
deal that I felt, because look, I mean, I hate to say this because I wish him, I've enjoyed watching him pitch the last 2 years. He's amazing. But with pitchers, you just feel like you're that one pitch away from a blown elbow, like,
Yep.
and then they're out for a year and a half with Tommy John. But Kenny,
Yep.
you got any thoughts you want to throw in here on the Edwin Diaz slash Tarek Skubal possibilities?
Mostly on just generic baseball stuff that all of these owners are billionaires. And bottom line is, if they wanted to keep the players, if they wanted to build an organization, the Dodgers have laid the blueprint.
Yeah,
And any of these owners could do that. Here in Dallas Fort Worth, with the Rangers, our owners made it very clear he has a firm budget that he wants to stay within. And uh, players like Diaz and Skubal are going to be able to go where the money is, go to the teams
absolutely.
that are willing to do what it takes to build a winning organization. Um,
Yeah, absolutely. You're right. And I don't know what's coming, what baseball is going to look like after 2027. Um, but it's a conversation worth having. And we know it's all about the dollars, guys. We're all adults here. We know that money drives so many of these decisions. I just wish when baseball approved an ownership group to purchase a team, if you're going to own a baseball team, you should have to sign something that says we're committed to trying to compete for a World Series title. You should
Hmm.
be able, and if you're not moving forward with that, we're going to take your franchise away from you. And I know that's pie in the sky kind of, fairy tale world where money's not the number one factor in all this. But man, Pittsburgh, I've said this before. I've met Pirates fans. I've talked to a lot of Pirates fans on our page. I'm looking forward to visiting that ballpark. It looks amazing. It looks beautiful. I think they're dedicated fans, and they have been waiting way too long for a competitive baseball team capable of winning a World Series. I mean, Sid Bream ended the Pirates, and that was a long time ago, right? I was 15 years old when Sid Bream slid in and ended the Pirates.
Hmm.
It's time, and the Pirates are one of those teams. Obviously, the A's have been one of those teams. We'll see where they go forward from here. The Reds, to some extent, have become one of those teams where they just can't kind of spend the money they want to spend. And to your point, Kenny, all these owners are making money, and they always argue that they're losing this amount of money, they're losing that amount of money. I find it hard to believe that they're actually losing the amount of money they say they are. And I think when the labor strife happens, and we know it's coming, the one thing the players should do is make the owners open their books and show us exactly how much you're losing, quote unquote. But again, to Kenny's point, the owners got all the money. They're billionaires, and usually when you get to labor strife, the one with the most money wins. And so I feel like the owners are pretty much going to get what they want out of all this. And all this ties into the Dodgers signing Edwin Diaz, potentially trading for a guy like Skubal. The rich get richer. They're going to be tough to beat again, guys. And just briefly before we touch on one more free agent signing, we talked about this off camera before we started recording, but are the Dodgers capable? Can the Dodgers three-peat? We haven't seen a baseball three-peat since the late 90s with the Yankees, and before that, I believe it was the A's in the 70s. So it's a very rare thing. I mean, they're built for it. Will baseball attrition take over, or do you think the Dodgers will actually? If you had to take the Dodgers or the field, who are you taking? Right now, I'd have a hard time not taking the Dodgers. Nico, your thoughts?
Yeah, it's tough, man, because like you said, they just are by far the best team on paper. But one of the unique things about baseball is that um, the best team doesn't necessarily win the World Series. And I think with LA, I think Kenny mentioned it. They're continuing to, they've laid the blueprint on how they want to continue to build a team and continue to improve. And it seems like guys are lining up outside the stadium to play for the Dodgers or have an opportunity to play for the Dodgers. But as it currently stands, we talked about it, this past fall. You know, I'm still going to take the field over the Dodgers because I think there's just too much parity in baseball. I think it's just way too hard. It's extremely hard to repeat, which the Dodgers did. And it's even 10 times harder to three-peat. So I think that I'm still going to say that the rest of the league, we're going to see one of these teams emerge, and whether it's a New York or a Boston or a surprise team that is going to go into the playoffs and give the Dodgers a really tough series. I mean, Toronto did it. Toronto was inches away from beating the Dodgers, and they couldn't get it done. I think that was more about Toronto letting it go than LA winning it, but that may be just sour grapes at this point. But hey, Jason, I was just saying that I at this point, I still want to take the field. I think baseball, it's the one sport that the best team doesn't necessarily win. So I still think that we're going to get hopefully another winner, next fall. Um,
We're
but
gonna
man,
get painted as anti-Dodgers after this
if
episode.
just think, guys, if they can, again, this is a big what if they can get Scooble and they can sign Kyle Tucker and continue to add, can you imagine? I mean, again, we're not there. It may not happen. It probably won't happen, but they just got Edwin Diaz, best closer in baseball. Dude, I mean, they don't need Tarek Skubal. They don't need him. You know what I mean? It's like, I could list you 10 teams that need Skubal more than the Dodgers do. No, again, no hard feelings towards Josh. I know he's a Tigers fan. I hope he stays in Detroit. You know what I mean? I hope he stays as a Tiger for the next 7 years. I mean, that's what I hope for.
Yeah, just real quick, I got Michael who's he's listening at this point. He's unable to talk, but he put in the chat if he's betting money, he's taking the field. If he's just guessing, he's taking the Dodgers, and that's
Yeah.
kind of how I feel too, Mike. That's a good call. Um, Josh, any thoughts around the three-peat possibility?
Oh, very possible. I mean, they're going to be in there, right? They're going to be there, and they're not done. Whether it's Tarek or not, that they're going to get somebody else. They're going to get that corner outfielder that they tried to get at the deadline, right? They were trying to get Quan and some other people.
Yep.
They'll address that. So they're going to be on paper. They're going to be stronger. I mean, the funny thing is for the longest time last season, you're like, the Dodgers, are they there? Because they're
Yeah.
there, but it's like not the Dodgers we expected. And then they all of a sudden get the guys healthy that they knew that they had waiting, and they find a way. Now, I absolutely agree. I've said it before. I was thoroughly impressed with the Toronto Blue Jays, with what they did last year. And again, I mean, a Miguel Rojas ninth inning home run. As crazy as that is, right? Of all the guys you thought that would pull that off, not ninth batter, Shohei was on deck. Away from the Blue Jays winning it.
Yeah, and I think
Right?
it speaks to you guys' point and to Mike's point. Like baseball is such a, I hate to say unpredictable, but I mean, you think about even back to the Dodgers' first title, the Padres had them on the ropes. The Padres had them on the ropes in the LDS and let them
Yeah,
off. And then this time, obviously, Toronto had every opportunity in the
they
world
did.
to win that series. And it's one of the, and again, let me say this before we get a lot of angry comments and stuff. I'm not anti-Dodgers. I love Freddie Freeman. Obviously, he's a Braves guy. I love Shohei. I'm not anti-Shohei, even though he obviously gets a lot of press and drives our guy Bruce up the wall. Um, it's not that. It's just that it does seem a little patently unfair that they're able to just go get whatever players they want. Um, and it was one of the few times in my life. Look, I'm a big sports fan. I've watched a lot of. I no longer really follow the NBA that closely, but I have in the past. I've watched NBA Finals. I've watched Super Bowls, World Series, Stanley Cup Finals. It's one of the few times that I can recall watching a team celebrate the championship and feeling like the wrong team won the series. And that's not knocking the Dodgers. To your point, Josh, Miguel Rojas saved the day.
Yeah,
What
out
were
of
the
all
odds of
people.
that? What
I,
were the odds of that?
yeah,
You know, so
disbelief.
yeah, it's not being anti-Dodgers. I don't hate the Dodgers. It's just as a baseball fan and as a sports fan, When I was growing up, when I was a kid, I started watching the NFL, the 49ers won all the time. And I hated the 49ers, not because I hated their players or their fans. I just got tired of them winning. I was tired of them. And when somebody would come along and knock them off, it was like, that's amazing. It's the same concept. When the Yankees were winning three in a row, which it didn't help that they beat the Braves twice in the World Series during that stretch, but it's like, can somebody just come along and knock these guys off because it's sports? It's supposed to be competition. You want parity. You want to see other people. So, yeah, I was pulling for the Diamondbacks in 2001 because that would have been four in a row for the Yankees.
Right.
Can you imagine? So, yeah, I just want to make that point. It's not that we're all anti-Dodgers because we don't like the fans or we don't like I mean, some of us might. I don't know. But
Oh,
that's not
no,
my
I'm not
reason.
anti-Dodgers at all
Yeah,
either. Just
yeah.
so
They're doing
everyone, I
what
mean,
Kenny said it.
maybe if they get Tarek, it'll change my mind. But
Yeah.
but
Kenny said it. Kenny said, they're the model. They're doing it,
well, yes,
the
they
right way.
are. But and I don't want to go down a wormhole of salary, but I mean, yeah, when a team makes 800 million a year, yeah, they're going to be able to spend more than a team that makes 300.
Absolutely.
That's just a fact of
Absolutely.
life. So yeah, I
Absolutely.
mean, just like Mark Cuban can buy things today that I cannot.
Right.
So
Right. Lots of
yeah,
things. Yes.
I mean,
Yeah.
so and they're not, and that's why again, clear. I don't hate I I fear that, and I explained this on our last podcast just by numbers. I explained of how the bottom 10 teams have not kept up with the top 10 teams spanning an average over the last decade.
Correct.
It's only gonna get worse
Well,
unless
and I don't
something
know if
changes. What that is, and no people, again, I don't even get the hate mail. I don't want Jason and Nico to get hate mail. I'm not saying salary cap. There's other ways to do this, like other sports have done. I know it's
yeah.
scary. I know it's based America's pastime, but numbers show it's only getting worse.
Well, and I don't know if the players realize this, but the worst possible thing that could happen to the players is a Dodgers three-peat heading into labor
Yeah,
negotiation.
yeah.
Right.
Because the owners are just going to pound on that. They're going to say, look, this is, we got to do something about this, even though the owners' motives have nothing to do with stopping the Dodgers. It's going to be about, obviously, lining their own pockets. Kenny, you got any thoughts around all this, buddy?
Yeah. So going back to what you were asking originally, can the Dodgers repeat three-peat? They could, but I just don't see it happening. Every year you have a team that comes out of nowhere. And I'm a big Rangers fan. I'm going to go back to 2023. The Rangers came out of nowhere that year,
Yeah.
and they were able to get career years out of about half the team, if not more. And that propelled them into the playoffs barely. And then they had this magical run in the postseason. Um, there's always going to be that team that can do that. And it doesn't matter how good the Dodgers are, they've got to beat 30 other teams or 29 other teams. Um, so I really don't think the Dodgers are going to three-peat. If they do great, they've earned it. They've
Yeah.
spent the money to get there, but I just don't see it happening because of the unpredictability of having a player like Rojas coming in and hitting a home run in the ninth inning.
Yeah.
You know,
It's so
it's
funny that
just
it's so funny that we all harp on that because if it had been Freddie Freeman or Shohei or Mookie, we'd be like,
right.
oh, that's the Dodgers. But it was Miguel Rojas of all people. So it's just kind of hilarious. The only thing I'll say, I agree with you, Kenny. I think three. I thought the repeat probably wouldn't happen, so I'm still trying to get over that, and it nearly didn't. Uh, the three-peat would be amazing, but look, the Dodgers are already in the playoffs. You could hand them the NL West title today. None of those teams in the NL West are going to contend with them. And I don't think there's a move that the D backs, the Giants, or the Padres can make that are going to vault them into contention. Those teams might actually be moving backwards a little bit. So the Dodgers are in. They're probably going to have a bye. So now you're down to somebody's got to beat them in a best of five, and or a best of seven just to get them not in the World Series. So it's possible. I like to think what you're saying, Kenny, too, though, the unpredictability, you get that team, hopefully the Braves, that, takes off in the postseason and pulls the upset. Um, we'll see. We'll see what happens. It's a fascinating conversation because it's not a conversation we've been able to have since the late '90s with the Yankees. Nobody's repeated since then. Uh, it kind of leads though. We've talked a lot about the Blue Jays guys, and the last free agent signing I really want to talk about, and hopefully we'll have some more activity. To Nico's point, it moves so slowly. You're just waiting for that big day. And it was kind of the last couple of days we had some action, right? But Dylan Cease has kind of flown under the radar. The Blue Jays seem like to me they're all in. Now they haven't re-signed Bichette yet. We'll see what happens there. Um, but thoughts around that Dylan Cease move? I thought I was a little surprised just because free agents have been a little reluctant to go to Toronto. I guess because of dealing with living in Canada and all that comes with that. But I thought this was a good move for the Blue Jays. It shores up an already pretty good pitching staff. We saw the young guy in the postseason. I'm going to butcher his name, probably Yasavage. They've got. I'm going blank. Somebody help me out. Gossman. Is that right?
Gossman, yeah.
Thank you.
Shane Bieber.
Thank you, Shane Bieber. I mean, they've got a staff in place. You add Cease to that, and Toronto's either going to bottom out or they're going to be so pissed off at how last season ended, the World Series ended, they're going to come out with revenge on their minds. Nico, your thoughts around Dylan Cease and just the Blue Jays in general?
Well, look, I think they're trying to. I mean, they recognize that they're the American League champs, right? They were inches away, so close. I mean, we're going to talk about this all
Literally,
winter.
literally
I mean,
inches. Yeah.
I mean, I'm not a Blue Jays fan, and I don't think anyone here necessarily is, but like, I've never seen a team, inches away from winning and
Yeah.
miraculous somehow, whatever. I don't want to talk about it anymore. But Cease, look, it's a good ad. The contract is kind of alarming at 7 years, 210. Last season he was 8-12 record, 4.55 ERA. He strikes out a bunch of guys. He's inconsistent, but he's a quality arm. I think this has everything to do with Gosman and Bieber are going to be free agents after next season. So I think this sets them up for long term, holding on to a guy like Cease as maybe the future ace. I don't know if they're going to hold on to Gosman or Bieber, but they've got a terrific staff as it currently stands. And from what I'm hearing, they're still very active in free agency. They're Kyle Tucker went down to Florida and checked out the spring training facility. And obviously you got Bo Bichette. That's another big one. Is Bo going to stay in Toronto, or is somebody going to entice him to leave? And I know Boston met up with him. I want to believe there's other players for Bo. Again, I think your Braves are. I don't know if the Braves should be involved with Bo. It makes all the sense in the world to me. I don't know if that's going to happen. I don't know what's going on with the Braves. That's another topic. They've been really quiet for a team that should be back in play next season. But, Toronto's got a terrific team. I think Cease is an excellent ad. I think the contract is very questionable. I don't think Cease is in the same realm as a Garrett Cole or some of these elite guys. But what the saying is, man, if you want to go get your guy, you just go and get him. And that's what they did with Cease. This happened before the winter meeting started. Toronto's interesting because they, like we talked about, Jason, during the playoffs, they're a high payroll team. I mean, they've got some big pockets, and I didn't know that. I thought that Toronto was more of maybe a top 10, top 15 payroll in baseball, but I mean, they're right up there, man, I think they're fifth. And shoot, if they retain Bo or get Tucker, that payroll is just going to continue to climb. So, again, they're the defending American League champs, and I think like you said, man, are they going to go out next year and go on the run again, or are they just going to be deflated from that epic World Series collapse, Game 7? So we shall see.
I mean, it's hard to recover from that because you think about if I was a player, you think about what you had to do just get to that point. 160, spring training, 162 games, the postseason to get to that one moment where you were that close. And it's got to be tough mentally. So if they can overcome that, but they're in a division with the Yankees, and now the Birds are back in play. So I don't know. It's going to be tough. Josh, any thoughts around this subject with the Cease and the Blue Jays?
Yeah, it shows. Obviously, you said they're all in. They're not shying away. And they haven't. I mean, they went after Soto. They went after Ohtani. Didn't get him. but they got their guy Vladdy last year, which was big, and then they delivered in the year after they signed him to that $500 million contract, right? Dylan C said I was thoroughly impressed with their process and their, in their pitch to me. They're committed to winning, championship caliber, and that's why, one reason why they wanted to be there, why he chose Toronto. He literally told Boris, "I want to sign with Toronto, work it out." So, he seemed pretty distinct in what he felt they were bringing to the table. As far as the contract, I know we always say, "Man, that's a lot. Man, that's a lot." But pitching's expensive. It just is. Especially starting pitching, and especially when for the last 5 years straight you've started at least 32 games. He's that, if anything, with all the injuries across especially in pitching to arms, and I really hope I don't jinx the guy, even though, but to show like, hey, this guy's going to be every 5 days, he's going to take the ball, he's going to be on the mound. He's finished he was in the top 5 of the Cy Young twice in that span.
Yeah, I think that's the key, Josh, is the durability, because we talked earlier about pitchers are one pitch away from blowing an elbow out, and
right.
He's shown the ability to be durable. I think that I would rather pay for a guy like that than the guy who has a great strikeout to walk ratio, but he's using a lot of torque on his arm, and he's destined for Tommy John surgery.
These days, you've seen. Speaking of all the injuries they had, you need 6 to 7. He almost kind of helps with that. Like, hey, he's going to be there, he's going to post, and he's going to pitch. And we know what we get out of him. I know sometimes like his ERA doesn't pop out at you, but he gets you the 5 to 6 every 5 days during 162. And Toronto, as Nico said, they were been top 5. Mark Rogers is literally the second richest owner in baseball. Though all the Rogers centers, Rogers arenas all across Canada. That's why dude's doing okay.
Yeah, the Blue Jays' problem has never been willingness to spend money. It's been getting the free agents to agree to come. To the
what
team.
I'm speaking to is that 30, like the way. Again, who knows what happens with this next CBA? What, if anything? But in 2 to 3 years, 30 mil for a guy who finishes top 5 in the Cy Young every few years. Yeah, man, cool. We did okay. At least my opinion. The way things change, So I really don't. I don't think it's going to be that. I don't think 210 is that big a deal for them. Not when, especially over the next 3 to 5, they're right there, which I have every intent that they think they're going to be. Yes, they're in a tough division, but I still think a lot of times they're going to be right in the mix for their wild card. Yeah, Bo Bichette's a big one for them. Just stemming to the Blue Jays in general. He is really the epitome of what that lineup is and was able to do to the Dodgers and to put them on the brink. One of the few 300 hitters in Major League Baseball last year. What were there, 2 or 3?
Not many.
Yeah. Not many with the pop that he had. Aaron Judd's an exception because he isn't human, but that's okay. And that's how, like, if you want to talk about, that's how you beat the Dodgers, because the Dodgers have guys that will strike you out, and the Blue Jays don't strike out. That, and I've talked about it before. That was the thing that, not like for the Tigers and even the Mariners, I thought was going to be the problem against the Dodgers for those two teams if they had gotten there, right? Because the Dodgers were just going to strike them out too much, not the Blue Jays. They put the ball in play, and in that.
If only there was a team in the National League that needed a really good shortstop that might put them over the top to compete with the Dodgers.
Right.
I'm trying to think of a team.
I know.
I think it's the Atlanta Braves, to Nico's point.
Yes.
If the Braves are not in on Bichette, I've come to the realization, and I don't know if Mike can talk right now, but the Braves just aren't going to spend money like they say they can. They're capable of it. They're making money hand over fist with the battery. They've got their core locked up for a few more years. The Riley, Olsen, Acuna's contract's coming up pretty soon. That's going to be a big decision coming up. Go get Bichette. I don't want to go off on a Braves tangent. Go get Bichette and put him in that lineup, and it changes everything for Atlanta because right now you're plugging in Dubon they got from Houston. We got through a season last year with Nick Allen, who was great in the field, but he's not a bat. You put Bichette in there as a bat, and all of a sudden you're talking in my opinion a lineup um, that can compete with the Dodgers if they don't get injuries. Mike says in the chat, didn't the Braves owner say they wanted to be a top five spender? Yes, he did say that. I believe he also said that back in like 2022 or 23, and they haven't. They're in the 10 to 12 range ish, maybe 8 to 12 range. Um, yeah, I could look. We could do a whole show on the Braves. I'm going to bring back my Braves podcast at some point. Maybe Mike can join me as a co-host on that, and we'll go off on Alex Anthopoulos as much as possible. But if the Braves are not at least having conversations about Bichette, I'll be very disappointed. Kenny, you want to chime in on the Blue Jays / Cease or anything else we just discussed?
I just look at historically when a team is that close, they typically don't perform well the next year.
Typically, you're exactly right.
And so I think the Blue Jays could come back and have a great season. But as you mentioned before, they've got the Orioles, they've got the Yankees and the Red Sox. Tampa's always
Yeah.
lurking.
Yep.
So I look at the Rays or the Blue Jays and I see a team that has a huge mental block to overcome now.
I agree. I
Signing
agree.
Cease,
Yeah.
it plugs a hole, but is it going to plug that emotional hole that they've got?
Yeah. That's a great point. I agree wholeheartedly. You look back, Super Bowl losers typically don't do great the next year. It's hard to get back to that point. Same thing with World Series. I mean, it's just hard, because like to your point, the mental side of grinding through a season and all the work you did in the preseason, and then you got to win those postseason series. I mean, look, the Blue Jays had to battle the Mariners just to get there. That series could have gone either
Right.
way. So, yeah, it's a lot.
2011 Rangers,
Yeah,
2011 Rangers were one
absolutely.
pitch, one strike
Yeah.
away from winning it all.
Absolutely. And I've
Took them
said this
another
before.
12 years to get back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've said this before about the Phillies. The Phillies may never
Mhm.
recover from losing that NLCS to the Diamondbacks. They were
Right.
up 3 games to 2 at home, and they should have won that series, and they didn't. And I'm not sure they've ever recovered from that. And that was 3 years ago now. So
Right.
let's see. It's a great point. That's a great point. Yeah.
Jason,
So I mean, yeah, Nico, go ahead.
hey, quickly, I know again, I don't again, this is the Bo Bichette free agency thing is like kind of a phenomenon because I think not too many people know what's going on. I haven't heard anything linking him to Atlanta. Have you? I don't know if anybody's heard that.
Not
That
outside of
blows,
fans hoping for it.
that blows my mind because Double A, Alex Anthopoulos, Bo came up with him in Toronto,
Yeah,
so there's familiarity there.
absolutely.
You slide Bo in, that infield with Riley, Albies, Olson, a healthy Ronald Acuna, an improved Michael Harris. Come on.
Yeah.
Why not? Why
Yeah.
not? It
Yeah.
makes all the sense in the world. I don't know. I've heard that Bo wants to stay in Toronto. We'll see. Again, free agency is unpredictable, right? Look at Pete Alonso. Nobody saw
Yeah.
Pete going to Baltimore. We thought Pete was going to go to, probably Boston, maybe New York. So I'm very interested to see what happens with Bo Bichette. I would love to see him in Atlanta. I think that'd be a great fit, an
I
amazing
would
fit.
say I will say this about Anthopoulos. He typically does things very quietly, and things do, pun intended, I guess, come out of left field with him a lot. And there's not often a lot of scuttlebutt before he makes a move. So that gives me hope. But I've seen literally nothing from a Braves writer or anybody close to the organization say anything about Bichette. So
Uh,
we'll see. He needs to put his money where his mouth is. The Braves need to put their money where their mouth is. They can afford him. I know they can, but we can't go through a season with a hole at shortstop again. It was a
no.
terrible. Again, no discredit Nicky Allen. He can pick it over there. He made some amazing plays in the field. But when you've got that hole in your lineup with the bat, on top of guys that were underperforming, the bottom of that order was awful because often Michael Harris was at the bottom of the order. And you put in the struggles he had for most of the season, 3 quarters of the season, and then you got Nick Allen at the bottom. I mean, it was awful. So if they're not in on Bichette, I don't understand why. We'll have to just wait and see. I cross my fingers every day to see that tweet come across. The Braves did make a move. I guess we can hit on that really quickly. It's not a huge move. They signed Mike Yastrzemski to a 2-year deal with a third-year option. Reading into some of the Braves commentators close to it, I kind of agree with their take. It gives the Braves a lot of flexibility. The assumption is that Ozuna's gone. And so I'm seeing some things that Yastrzemski might be in left because he's a better fielder than Profar. Profar becomes your DH, but you've also got that flexibility there. You can move those guys around. Yastrzemski, I think, is more of a right fielder typically, so he could spell Acuna, give him days off. It gives the Braves flexibility. It's not a game changer. It's not going to be the difference between them winning the World Series or not. It does give them some flexibility. There still needs to be a move made at shortstop. They still got bullpen to address, and they still need another starter. So we'll see how it works out as we move forward. All right, man, that's a lot just on hot stove. We had some good discussion there. I wanted to talk just a little bit about we're kind of pushing. I'm gonna have to edit this down a little bit, but I do want to keep this going because it's good talk. I want to talk a little bit about 2026, and as we move in, I guess my biggest question here is a fan, and for the people listening that are big fans of baseball, is this whole season going to be overshadowed by the looming labor strife, the CBA coming up? Is there any hope that these two sides can sit down and work something out before it gets uglier? Or are we headed for an NHL type meltdown where we could potentially lose a season? And will that overshadow everything that we're trying to enjoy about the 2026 season? Josh, we'll start with you on this one and then move on.
It sure seems like it's going to be a tough one, just because from whatever I've seen, they are just at opposite ends of the spectrum on
Everything.
the South. Well, yeah, right. A lot salary. I mean, and mainly being whether you want to say that a salary cap or even talking about a potential salary floor.
Yeah.
There's some owners coming out saying, yes, we want one. Some other obviously not. Dave Roberts even came out last week and said he isn't necessarily opposed to it, but he would want a salary floor because he's like, if we're going to be capped on what we can spend, then, make those guys at least pay. Obviously, when you're governing for the masses or everything, everyone's not going to be happy no matter what you do. It's going to be tough. I don't see anything, necessarily getting done, especially before this season. I just think in season is going to be really tough. Once everything gets going, in season, everyone's doing their thing in season. What can they get accomplished on something that huge? I don't know. Yeah. One thing to note, like contract wise, is, technically it's December, what is it? It ends December 31st of next year. So, like free agents still will have a month to sign before that CBA technically ends.
Right.
Good
point. Yeah, that's a good point. That'll be an interesting period of time. If they don't have anything worked out, which they probably won't, that'll be a very interesting period of time to watch during that, right before it ends. I don't want it to overshadow everything, but as somebody who lived through the 1994 strike, it did overshadow that season. I remember the possibility. You as a baseball fan, you thought they're going to get something. They're not going to just cancel a bunch of games, and they're certainly not going to lose an entire postseason. And then it happened, and we lost a chance to see Tony Gwynn pursue 400. We lost a chance to see Matt Williams pursue Roger Maris's single season home run record. We lost a chance to see potentially the Montreal Expos in a World Series. That was a very good Montreal team that year. You always think these guys, they understand how detrimental it could be to lose an entire season, to lose a bunch of games. But then you realize it's really all about the money. And if they did it once, they could do it again. Nico, your thoughts on the labor situation?
Yeah, you know, again, it's something I'm trying to enjoy, the free agency and look forward to 2026, but you can't help but think about um, the looming, after the season's over, the World Series is over, and what's going to happen after that? What's November, December, January, February of 26 into 27? What's that going to look like?
Yeah,
They should be. This is something that should be. They should be at the table today. They should have been there yesterday. There should be some legs on how this is going to shake out. I can't help but think that it's going to create, at the very least, a stall in play. I think that spring training will probably be interrupted. Opening day may be pushed back. Is it going to be a matter of days or a couple of weeks, or is this going to be something that's going to go into, the months of April, May, June? You just don't know. I think it's this is where baseball loses when it comes to things like this. They seem to be on their own island when it comes to CBA. And I know it happened in hockey. I'm not saying it doesn't happen in other sports necessarily, but there seems to always be moving at a snail's pace, and the uncertainty with the game. What I will say, man, is that the game is in a great place. There's a ton of great players out there. I really hope baseball doesn't screw this up and piss off the fans out. The fans that are so loyal to the game. So I'm cautiously optimistic. I think, like you said in the past, Jason, hopefully cooler heads will prevail and a happy median will be met. I'm not sold on that. And like Josh mentioned too, right now there's a serious issue with top spenders and bottom spenders, and it's just,
yeah,
the gap is widening. Baltimore's changing up a little bit, as you can see this winter. They're spending a little bit, but it's high and cold with these teams on the bottom. Sometimes they invest, sometimes most times they don't. And the top guy, the top dogs continue to have the best performances on the field and getting to a World Series. So we'll see what happens, man. I'm cautiously optimistic, but I expect a stall at the very least.
yeah, that's kind of where I'm at. Talking about the other leagues, I think the reason that baseball always has this is because the Baseball Players Association is the strongest of the four sports. I think they have more. They've just always been the strongest union between the four major sports, and hopefully nothing like the nuclear option that the NHL had. I think it was 04, 05. It's been a long time now. Um, Hopefully nothing like that. Kenny, any thoughts around this unfortunate subject?
Yeah, I don't see a great future over the next couple of years. I think there is going to be a work stoppage. It's been 30 years since the last work stoppage, and most of the players then are not involved with baseball now.
True.
So it's a whole new set of people who may have experienced the last work stoppage, but they weren't involved in it.
Yeah, that's
Um,
a great point. That's a great point.
it is a cyclical thing. We had the stoppage in the early 70s. We had the stoppage in the early 80s, and then the early 90s. Well, it's been 30 years.
Yeah,
Um, I just don't have a lot of hope for them working things out. People don't make decisions until they're faced with a deadline,
it's
and
true.
that deadline is, like you said, a month after the baseball season ends. Nobody's going to be signing contracts next year because the agents are going to hold out for the new CBA. The owners are going to be holding out for the new CBA, so there's not going to be any contract signed from about the All Star game on. And after the season, there's going to be no movement until the CBA comes around. And if the CBA doesn't get done during the season next year, which I don't see happening, there is
Yeah,
going to be a work stoppage because they are going to hold out. The players aren't going to report, and the owners are going to lock the spring training facilities. I don't want to see it happen, but I don't see them avoiding it.
yeah. No, those are all great points. 30 years is a lot of time. A lot of memory has been erased of 1994. And to Nico's point, baseball's in a really good spot. I mean, the ratings have been up. I think there's more excitement about the game. The changes that were made that I was skeptical of, I'll admit. I think the speed of play, pace of play has helped, especially with the casual fan that didn't want to watch a 3.5 hour baseball game. Um, so it's in a good spot, and they've done a better job of marketing their stars. Like there's a lot of positives. I went to the All Star game this year. Amazing show that they put on there with the fan. I forget what they call it, but the fan area with all the booths, and I mean it was unbelievable. It's great. It would be a shame, and Michael just put it in the chat. You know, if they lose the 2027 World Series, um, you know, you're going to lose a ton of those new fans that you've probably gained in the last few years. And look, I know people in my personal life that never went back to baseball after 1994. They never went back to being the kind of baseball fan they were before that strike. And in doing the Black Sox series, it occurs to me, first of all, it's not a new conversation. They've been fighting, owners and players have been fighting since since the beginning. The Black Sox scandal almost, I wouldn't say it ended baseball, would have ended baseball, but it was going to be a big black eye. And baseball got a little bit lucky in 1920 because some guy named Babe Ruth came along and started bashing homers for the Yankees. And people love home runs, right? And it brought fans back to the park, and they got past the Black Sox scandal. Well, in 1994, lost a lot of fans, a lot of disgruntled fans, and angry feelings towards the game. And lo and behold, we got the Sammy Sosa, Mark McGuire home run chase in '98 that brought a lot of people back. We won't go into how they hit those home runs right now, but the fact is, it was an amazing summer. I remember that summer. I remember checking ESPN every morning. I remember talking about it at work with my colleagues. How many they hit last night? You know, it brought a lot of people back. There's no guarantee that if this happens again, that something like that will happen. There's no guarantee that the next Babe Ruth will show up or there'll be a great home run chase. Baseball better be very careful here because they're on the brink of there's a fork in the road coming. They're on the brink of doing really good things with the game. They're also on the brink of ruining the game. And so I hope they're very careful with it as we go forward. I agree with Kenny though. They're going to wait because those deadlines are what matter, and nothing's going to get done before that. Let's put Bryce Harper and Rob Manfred in a room. Let's break a pool cue, pool stick, right, and hand it to each of them and say, whoever comes out of the room, my money's on Bryce. My money's on Bryce. But I think that's how we should settle this. I want to end on a positive note. We don't want to end on labor strife because this has been a great conversation. Love the conversation here. This has been great talk. Like having more people on. I mean, this has just been fantastic. So I want to end on a positive note. So very quickly, if you guys could be concise so I don't have to edit an hour's worth of time here. Your favorite takeaway from this past season? What was the thing of baseball season 2025 that you will kind of remember positively? We won't. I know Nico is he's thinking, oh, the Blue Jays were that close. Your positive memory of the 2025 season in baseball, Nico, you're up.
You got to give me at least 60 seconds. That's a tough one. Again, look, I am a Mariners fan and supporter. I can't help but think of the playoffs and what comes off the top of my head. And again, I know Josh is a Tigers guy, but the walk off in the game 5 against Detroit, Jorge Polanco getting that ground ball through the infield, and the Mariners finally getting that elusive win and advancing in the playoffs. So that's what comes off the top of my head. That was a huge positive moment, exciting.
Yeah.
So that probably be the one for me.
Awesome. Josh? Not that moment, I guess, for Josh. Not the same moment. Uh-oh. Josh's having some audio difficulties. We can't hear you, buddy. Josh is having technical difficulties. Let's flip it over to Kenny, see if Josh can work out his technical. We can see you, Josh. We can't hear you. You're not coming through on audio. Yeah. I'm sure we got lip readers out there, but Kenny, you go ahead. What was your favorite moment or the moment you'll remember the most?
I really enjoyed the Cal Raleigh hunt for 61. That was just amazing to watch. I hate the Yankees. I'm not a big Mariners fan. I'm a Rangers fan, but Judge and Raleigh, just their excitement was it just really energized me towards the end of the season.
I agree.
Watching my Rangers falter, but I had something else to look forward to every day.
Yeah, no, that I agree wholeheartedly. I enjoyed watching Cal. I'll go back to, for me, it was the All-Star game, the home run derby, watching Cal Raleigh win that. And then the game itself, a unique ending, obviously a home run derby to end the All-Star game. Being a National League guy and being in the Braves Park, pulling for the National League. So Schwarber comes up big, and it was almost like a playoff atmosphere at that point. And so definitely, and I got to experience all that with my son. That was our lifelong dream, was to go to an All-Star game together, and we got to do that. So definitely the All-Star game. Let's circle back. Josh, are you still
Oh,
muted?
can you hear
Get
me?
you? Yeah.
Can you hear
All
me
right,
now?
we got you,
All
man.
right.
We got you.
Sorry about that.
All good.
Yeah, not the Jorge Polanco moment. Definitely not
Right.
that. But the
Right.
playoffs in general, even after the tough the 5 game series and 15 inning game defeat for my Tigers, were just great. I mean, the Dodgers Phillies. I mean, the wild, the way the
Yeah.
Dodgers won, crazy. I
Yeah.
mean, back to the pitcher. Yeah, the 5 game series with Detroit and Seattle. Then you had the crazy Seattle Toronto series, and then obviously you had the World Series. And we've talked about the Miguel Rojas moment, right? And
Yeah.
Yamamoto. I mean, what
Crazy.
what
Yeah.
he did is still insane when you go back and actually look what that man did over that
Yeah.
stretch, and going back out and throwing the amount of pitches, not only throwing the amount of pitches he did, but at the level he did. I mean, crazy with the amount of pressure. And I think that just really opened, like Jason, you were saying, that it got a lot of new fans to the game lately
Yeah.
between the time and the pitch clock and everything that some thought were skeptical. I think that even did more so. And I think the playoffs just capped it. And hopefully
Absolutely.
somehow they can keep that rolling
Yeah. Please
without
don't screw it
a
up,
stoppage, right?
baseball.
Without a stoppage.
Please don't screw it up, baseball. It was a fun season. It was a lot of fun. The World Series was just a capper to it. Hopefully, we got more to look forward to in 2026. So this has been great, guys. I want to thank everybody. Oh, by the way, our guy Mike, who's putting in the chat, he also mentioned the Cal Raleigh, and he thinks he got it in before Kenny did, but I think Kenny was actually already talking. Mike, I'm going to give Kenny the lead on that one. Um, Great job, guys. Thank you, Nico, Kenny, Josh, Mike. Appreciate all of you. This was fun. We need to do this again and get some more people involved. We need to get Justin on here. I'm going to put it on. Justin from Nostalgia Baseball Geezer. I'm calling you out, buddy. You got to come on the next roundtable we do. This was great stuff. So for all our listeners, I just want to remind you that we do have more coming your way this Sunday. The Fans Journey podcast series continues. I'll be talking about the 1995 World Series and my personal memories of that as an 18-year-old, just having graduated high school that year. Man, I'm getting old. Golly, I'm getting old. And then December 21st, part 2 of the Black Sox series, which will be focused on Shoeless Joe Jackson a lot. We'll talk Shoeless Joe, and we'll actually talk about the mechanics of how the Black Sox, the ones that were involved, how they were throwing some of those games and how that came about. And we'll wrap that series up with an episode 3, and my goal is to get that out to our listeners actually by New Year's Eve. So get 2 episodes pretty close together to wrap up the Black Sox series. In the meantime, please make sure you tune into the regular RAB podcast, which this will be on that feed. Appreciate all of our listeners again for your support. We're growing, and that's what we want to continue to do. So if you enjoy listening to a bunch of regular dudes talk ball with no agenda, we're not answering any corporate entities here. We certainly don't answer to Rob Manfred here on the show. So if you just enjoy that, please spread the word. Follow us on all of our platforms: YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and tell your family. Tell your family and your friends who are baseball fans to give us a listen. And if they don't like us, that's okay too. But we just want people to check us out. And we enjoy talking baseball and bringing you guys some great baseball content. Tune in to the Facebook page, Romantic About Baseball. We currently have a Trying to spend the time here, get through the time before spring training. We have a road jersey tournament going on. We're going to determine the best road jersey in baseball history. So go on the page and vote on that. In the meantime, appreciate all of you guys, and we will see you at the ballpark. Hello, baseball romantics. Jason here with a quick note adding to the end of this episode. A great episode, great discussion. We discussed during this episode the lack of moves by the Atlanta Braves, or the perceived lack of moves by the Atlanta Braves. We did discuss the Mike Yastrzemski signing. Right after we recorded this episode, we got word that the Braves had signed Padres reliever Robert Suarez, and given themselves a very formidable back into the bullpen with Suarez and Raciel Iglesias. So they did sign Suarez to a 3-year, $45 million deal right after we recorded this. So I wanted to tack on a note at the end for our Braves fans that we were not completely being forgetting about that signing. It just had not happened when we made this recording. So I wanted to tack this on to the end. And again, thank everyone for tuning into this broadcast. It was a great roundtable discussion. Thank you to all the guys. We'll see you at the ballpark.